Birds, people, and the dogs that bring them together. This is episode number 31. My name is Bill, and you're tied to the Wopost. Since this is a part 2, we're going to skip most of our intro, but I do need to thank my patrons as they're my biggest supporters. If you'd like to support the podcast and have access to exclusive content on a monthly basis, you can head on over to patreon.com/thewopost and become a patron. Where we left off, Bridget was getting ready to discuss her goals for her Vizsla breeding alliance. And then we're going to get into how breed standards are important and why we should stick with them. We're going to talk Bridget's hunting plans for the fall. And I don't think she's going to let you hotspot on that one. We're going to talk some more about NAVHDA. We're going to make some jokes about Doodles. And one of my dogs is going to throw up. But don't worry, I edited that part out.
So what we're trying to do with the Alliance is that we're trying to incentivize people to become part of it and really to get their dogs into NAVHDA and to be able to assess temperaments out through the NAVHDA testing system. The primary hunt test, AKC hunt test, is what drives some of the Vizslas. Field trials obviously drive breeding decisions for the Vizslas. The National Breed Club is very focused on obviously conformation show titles.
Mm-hmm.
The word versatility is used a lot, and it's in reference to a dog that can go do agility and barn hunt and maybe some fast cat obedience, those kinds of things. Hunt test, a dog that can do all of that. But when we use the word versatility, we're really looking at the dog that can go hunting in the marsh and the dog that can handle the uplands of wherever we love to be, whether it's the West or the East or up in the forest. And so we're really trying to incentivize people to come to the game. Through that, we're looking at building a framework of, if you wanted to put, let's say, 2 utility prize 1 parents together and they would achieve a breeder's award, let's just say, there would be like a secondary award that our alliance would give. So rather than become a breed warden of sorts, because there's no benefit to that for our breed, our breed is numerous enough and dominated by the American Kennel Club enough that it would be very hard to do that. And there's not a reason for it. We really want to get those dogs. We know there are good dogs that aren't doing NAVHDA that are out in the breeding programs. If we can get people to bring them to NAVHDA, then we can see whether we liked what we wanted in that. So we're trying to incentivize that and build a framework for people to want to do it. And so that's where the alliance comes in. And so we got quite a bit of work to do yet. And Kim Hauk has actually been needling me about it and giving me a hard time. She owns, let me count, 4 Vizslas now, a father and son, another boy, and then another female. So she's got 4 dogs, and she's very interested. And then there's another really great lady down in Iowa by the name of Kathleen Weller that has 4 or 5 Vizslas as well. And they're both saying, "Hey, let's get on this. Let's get after it." So we're working on it, but every once in a while we get somebody that says, "Hey, I'd like to do a utility test with my Vizsla," and we'll see dogs not from our own breeding programs come in for training. And it's so much fun to get to train those dogs, because not only am I working with a different genetic makeup, it's really fun to see if they can do all the things I'm asking them to do. And so that's what we're hoping to build. And we're also trying to incentivize people like NAVHDA does, that if you do achieve a score or a prize with your dog, that the alliance would honor that with a similar type certificate. So it's a very, very positive thing that we're trying to do, and we do not want to go the breed warden route.
I like that, the idea of incentivizing those, milestones, if you will. And, in our breed club and SMCA, we are working on our full AKC recognition, which basically means that eventually, like, our breed is going to grow. So we're going to need to figure out how to encourage people to breed smartly and to hunt test their dogs and everything like that, because we're not going to be able to tell them that they have to.
Right, and stay with the intent of the breed. What it makes the small Munsterlander so unique right? And
Right.
so so AKC in a way is because everybody in America, the non-doggy dog people, they go and buy a dog and they can see AKC registered litter. It gives it credibility, right?
Right.
Whereas if the alliances are behind it and saying, hey, we certify this breeding, aka the Small Monsterlander group says, not only do we endorse it, we're certifying it because the dogs achieved X in NAVHDA or they meet these breed standard qualifications. You'll be able to try to keep the breed true to what it was created for. I mean, I'm sure you've had plenty of discussions with different people about different breeds, but one of the things that I hear a lot is how certain venues of testing, training, and competing has changed these breeds. And at least for my breed, I can tell you that right now, if you were to go pick up a dog out of Europe and bring it here, they look a lot different than what we look at here in America, just visually. So you'll start with conformation only. And then you start looking at some other facets of these dogs, and it's amazing how different we have, what kind of a different breed we have here in America.
Now, do you think that's because of breeding for a different structure purely for aesthetic reasons, or do you think it's a functional thing of, hunters or hunting kennels are saying, hey, I need a dog that's, let's say, going to be more heat tolerant. Therefore, I'm going to look for these lighter color coats or, this different texture of coat, density of coat, and things of that nature?
The cool thing about being a breeder is you get to make those choices. I think the thing that we have to be mindful of every time we do make breeding decisions of any breed is whether your view or your filter has changed, and that you got into the breed because of certain characteristics and traits. And then are you drifting one direction or another? Are you getting too focused on conformation and looks and coat type? Or are you getting too focused on pure hunt drive and lack of trainability and lack of mental stability and maybe lack of looks? I mean, you see it happen in all breeds. I mean, I can point to plenty of Vizslas that I know that are, pure field trial slash, backyard bred dogs that aren't visually appealing. And likewise, I can point to beautiful, beautiful dogs that I would love to look at all day long, but they can't hunt inside my own breed. And that's why we're trying to build that alliance, is so that people can stay true to a standardized testing system that has credibility and then also gives us an assessment of dogs' mental state and their ability to do something, do hunting, not just all the life skills. We're talking hunting, the purpose that they were bred with.
Right. You got to have something for your dog to do those other 345 days out of the year for most people, right?
Not that any of that's bad.
Right.
I think also, hunting styles have changed how we breed dogs too. And when I lived out in California and Nevada, you could see a certain kind of dog was dominated, and it didn't matter what breed. Pick a breed. You could see a faster, smaller, racier version of that in the West than you would in the Midwest. In the Midwest, you might see a thicker coated, more sturdy, stronger version. Maybe I'm naming the stronger is not the accurate word. It's a very sturdy,
Sturdier, sure.
you know, cold weather tolerant dog. And I saw that in Vizslas. A lot of dogs out west are racy. They don't even worry about the coat because the dogs aren't out in the sub-zeros. You come up to the Midwest and you see people focused on coat. It's very interesting. It's always interesting to see the differences inside the breeds and how we can drift very easily when we don't pay attention.
It's funny to me too, we're such a big country and diverse in terrain and in climate and everything else. And you may find somebody in, let's say, and I'm gonna try to use extreme examples. There might be somebody that lives in Phoenix, let's say, who wants to hunt, those desert quail species, because that's what they kind of have within, kind of weekend driving distance around them. But they want to own, a small Munsterlander would be, like a terrible, terrible breed for that. But they might be like, I love these small dogs and they're so pretty and this, that, and the other thing. Horrible, horrible idea. But then they might end up breeding a shorter coated small Munsterlander that's leggier, maybe rougher coated, but shorter at the same time. And fast forward 5, 6, 7, 8 generations, whatever, and you've got this small Munsterlander that looks like a little tiny wire hair or something like.
Well, I know what you're saying, and it happens inside any breed, and people get focused on certain things that they like. Got to remember that we got into the breed because of certain things, and um, the fact that they were their own breed. I mean, now everybody's doing designer dogs and stuff, so there's all kinds of ideas about what people want. But I think at the end of the day, if you're focused on one breed and there's a breed standard, try your best to stick with it, and not just the conformation side of it and the looks of it. It would be also the skill set of that dog,
Right.
you know.
I'm not looking forward to the day when I see my first monster doodle.
Oh, oh, I saw some. I just got to mention, it was kind of funny. I saw somebody on Facebook just blast this post of somebody had an oopsie between a standard or party colored standard poodle and a German short hair. And it had 8 puppies in it. And I mean, the comments were brutal. I was like, wowzer, that's kind of harsh. But I mean, you just kind of scratch your head sometimes. Like, did we do this intentionally? I mean, it just, yeah.
Accidents happen. I've got a friend that had an accident with one of her females that was in heat, small Munsterlander female that was in heat. And she was fenced, she was contained, fenced in. It was a neighbor dog who somehow ended up in the kennel with this female, and the neighbor dog was a border collie. So she
Oops.
ended up exactly. So she ended up with a few I think she called them border monsters or something like that. And she said they were really interesting. I think she was ultimately able to adopt them, adopt them all out and home them over time. But she said they were really interesting because they were beautiful. They were super fast, super smart. They would point, retrieve, and herd.
One of the best dogs, I used to do the shoot for money competition shoots out in Nevada.
Hmm.
And it was so much fun. Everybody getting together, throw some birds down. Whoever comes out with the least amount of time, most amount of birds, and the least amount of shells shot won.
Okay.
One of my best dogs I ever saw that I judged on one of those was a border collie, and he could do everything that all of our pointers could do. I mean, he was all about it: point, retrieve, and would then, if he came across several chucker, because out there it's all sagebrush. If you let 20 birds go, they're all going to find themselves in a covey eventually. And this dog would circle around and put those birds on point with the owners coming straight at him. I thought that is just too cool. But it was a border collie, and that guy hunted hard with that dog. Likewise, one of my more fun memories is when I was a refuge biologist down in Klamath, and these 2 guys that were kind of local hunters, they were local farmer kids. They had this Datsun, and these guys were big. These boys were big. And that Datsun was an old brown open bed truck. And in the back of it, you would find them with their 110-pound pit bull and about $5,000 of decoys. And these guys would drive down these little levee roads, jump out with that little car, or jump out with that dog, set out all those decoys, lay waste to whatever geese species they were after, throw it all back in the Datsun. And you see them around the refuge all the time. And that pit bull could outdo any of the labs. I mean, he would just steamroll across those potato fields to go get the birds. He was so fun. But I mean, I love seeing the off breeds do the job too. And it goes to show how dedicated the dogs are to our cause and what we want to do. They'll do, if you ask them, if they've got any drive to improve or to please you, they will do it.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is kind of fun and a little bit embarrassing sometimes when we brag on our well pedigreed, well bred dogs that we researched this for months or years and waited on the right pairing, and then they're like, yeah, I got mine at the Humane Society, you know. Well, good for you, man, good for you. So you judged a test this past weekend, is that right?
Yeah, I was out in Colorado judging the Western Slope chapters. I think their second year of testing, or maybe third. It was a really lovely grounds up in Craig, Colorado, and got to see a rattlesnake. That was a big one. That was a big one. But the grounds are beautiful. The field itself is just really conducive to, especially newcomers, getting to see what dogs are doing in the field without, like, I think a lot of tests you go to, and once the dog's a little bit out in the field, you really can't see what's going on. They're flat level fields. These were fields that people could stand up on the hillside and look down into, and it was really beautiful to be able to show dogs that way. And likewise, their duck search grounds and water was beautiful. It was a really fun chapter, and we experienced every potential piece of weather that Mother Nature decided to throw at us that weekend, but it was good. I really enjoyed being out there. Good people too.
How the dogs do.
Well, it's with any test. You always have some heroes, and then you have some that kind of go home that aren't so happy. But it just, especially the young puppies, you got to remember dogs will be dogs, and they have their moments, and sometimes their moments are not when you want them to be silly. They just decide they're going to do their own thing in front of people, and I think we saw a little bit of that, but not too much. Most dogs did really well.
Good, good. So I don't have a ton of experience with testing. The few that I've done or I've volunteered at or just gone to watch, it seems like there's always somebody that's not happy with the judges. And I kind of laugh at that for a couple of reasons. And, number one, I mean, you said it, like, dogs will be dogs. The best dog will make a liar out of you once a year, at least, right? And it just happens,
Oh, yeah.
and you can't control that. But there's a lot that you can control. I kind of say that, there were 3 judges there that agreed on what they saw and what was going to go on that scorecard eventually. They may not have agreed initially, but that final answer was an agreement. And they bring a lot of experience to the table. And you're going to argue with them about it. I don't know. Sometimes I find it, and I try to laugh about it, but it's not always funny.
The one thing that's absolutely wonderful about NAVHDA, and the reason why I became a judge and believe so much in the organization, is that there are 3 judges, and we work off of the same standard of judging. We've all been through the same program, which is rigorous. No other dog testing or field trial organization puts their judges through what NAVHDA puts us through. And it starts as an apprentice, and you have to have walked the walk. And that means you have to have trained and tested a dog in utility and NA to be able to be part of the judging apprentice program. You need to have done a handler's clinic. And those are an investment of time and money to learn about the judging and the rules associated with how we come to scores. All of that, the standardization of it, and understanding how we all, again, adjust our eye and judge a dog. And the more experience you have in hunting and the more experience you have in understanding dogs, the better you'll do in the program. But it is a rigorous program, and it's not without criticism to you. You have to be willing to look in the mirror a lot. It's not just dealing with dogs. We're dealing with people. And we have to be people when we're doing that. We can't be only about the dogs. So there's a balance, and being able to exercise human social skills as well as being able to judge our dogs. And there is no other program out there, at least in my experience, that has that kind of rigorous nature to become a judge. And then once you become a judge, you have to uphold that. And then when you're on that team, each team is different. And it doesn't matter who you're with. We've all been through the same program. We can all speak the language and come to consensus about a dog's performance and give it a score. And I think that's so cool that 3 judges are required to be able to score a dog. And you won't see that in AKC. You'll see dogs go through hunt tests that have been judged by 1 judge the whole time they were in the field. Even though there's 2 judges there, they only were judged by 1 judge, right, because dogs got split up. So, and I know for a fact that their standardization of how they teach their judges is not very rigorous. It's pretty simplified. and even the amount of dogs that you've handled and personally trained. I think when you quote unquote have a dog in the game and have been on the judgment side of things, I think you're better at becoming a judge. And that is why NAVHDA requires us also to maintain our judging status through having dogs that we've trained and tested in the programs, whether it's NA, UT, UPT, invitational, they all qualify. It gives us, and I think the biggest thing is it keeps us real. When you are the person being judged by your peers, and then you have to go back and be a judge, you're going to keep it real. You won't get too caught up in politics, dog politics, not politics, but dog politics. You won't get too caught up in, that's this kennel versus that kennel. And even I was joking with one of my compatriots over the weekend, is that we were joking about, we don't even look at the breed anymore until the end of the day. So I'm judging the dog in the field. And when I'm finally getting down to looking at coat characteristics at the end of the day, I look at the breed. But I won't look at the breed because I don't want to bias my opinion of the dog. Because, like I said earlier, you can come across dogs that have got oodles and oodles of talent in each breed, and on the other end of the spectrum in each breed. So being unbiased is really important in maintaining that standard. And it's why the judging program is so good. And it really is why our testing system is so good. It really gives us for instance, when I'm looking at Vizsla studs, for instance, if I look at a utility test scorecard or his result points, it'll help me understand what kind of dog that is, because it was a standard that dog was judged against. And I know how rigorous that standard is.
There are some that don't like the scoring system in NAVHDA, but that really does provide a tremendous benefit to the dog, because people need to understand, oh, you only got a 3 in whatever. Well, you're lucky that's a 3 in NAVHDA, because that could have potentially been a 5 out of 10 in VHDF or something like that. And there's a big difference between a 3 out of 4 and a 5 out of 10.
Well, and that goes back to what I remember Bob talking to you about on his podcast, was the benefit of that 1 to 10 score system. And I like that score system.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. I would like for us to have some way to be able to put a standout performance up beyond 204 points, prize 1. There's some dogs that get prize 1, 204, that you're like, okay, the dog did the job, right? And it got the 204. But then there's some dogs that you're like, I have never seen a better nose on a dog, and it would be great to be able to note that somewhere, or trainability or whatever. There's all these little things that we could see as judges, and it would be nice to be able to note that. But we, unfortunately, with a 1 to 4 score system, we can't. And I think that's maybe the one thing that people are seeing different in the VHDF. And I'm curious. I wouldn't mind going and testing a dog in VHDF if I can find time. That's my hard part, of finding time to fit that in too. But it'd be fun to try it. And, especially because I don't think any Vizslas have been running that program.
Oh, really?
I think it's been dominated by wire-haired breeds, the poodle pointers and the wire hairs and sorts, maybe some German short hairs, but I bet you they've never seen a red dog come through there. So it'd be interesting to go try it and have fun.
Show them how it's done.
Well, with some dogs, or I could get schooled with some other dogs. You never know.
You have to be very deliberate about which dog you bring for the first one. After that, you're golden, right?
Well, and if I could turn back time, I mean, Jake was one of those dogs, like my first dog. He was a prize 1 dog the first time I took him through the utility test. He slam dunked it. I slam dunked it. And we had a great time doing it. But it had been fun, because it didn't matter where I went with that dog. People would say, wow, he's amazing. And he was. And it had been fun to have a scoring system that denoted that he was spectacular, because we all knew he was. And to be honest, I'll never have a dog like that again. He was special. Is the one kind of dog that comes across in your life that no matter what, that if there's only one bird in a 15-mile radius, he's finding it. And that's those are hard to find dogs. Those are very hard to find.
You're running an invitational dog this fall, right?
Yeah, I have my own personal dog out of my own breeding program that I'm running in the Invitational this year.
You've run an invitational dog before, right?
Yes, I've run 4 in the past.
Right on. And how's this one looking? You're what, 36 days down, or well, I guess it depends on which day you're on. But
I don't count down days. I'm
well, a
I
friend of
don't
mine
do that
is
to
from when
myself.
he's running. So
It is one of those things. It's easy to get yourself psyched out. I'm just staying focused on keeping the dog happy, doing the job, and looking good doing it. And I know she's doing things that I'm asking her to do right now. And when we get to the test, when the excitement of the day hits, we'll see what happens.
sure.
Um, I think the excitement of the day plays a huge role in pass or fail for people and their dogs because it is as much about us as it is about the dog.
And you hear so often too that training for the invitational, for the test, right, is such a grind, and that, people overtrain their dogs and they just turn them off. The dogs become disinterested, and then you really have to give the dog, sometimes weeks to decompress, and then you might be rewinding that clock and starting from further back than where you were.
Like I said, I've run 4 dogs. Well, I will. No, I have. I've run 4 dogs already. So the dog I'm taking to the Invitational is one of 4 that have qualified for the Invitational out of her litter. Her mother, I ran in 2019 at the Ohio Invitational, and Blondie passed and made it feel like it was super easy to train for and easy to do. Blondie's one of those dogs that's special. Mental stability plus, loves the job and got better through every time we trained. She got better and better. And on test day, it showed. She peaked at test day. It was beautiful. Then I ran Ruby, who's out of my Ripley, and one of the Martinson stud dogs called Reggie. And I ran Ruby at the same year that we were catching up from COVID, and it was a week-long Iowa Invitational. And I had 2 other dogs there. One that is out of Alpine Kennels, a Vizsla named Driggs, who very talented dog, and another very talented dog named Goose that Kim Hauk owns, and she lives in West Virginia. And Goose is the kind of dog that can sense a disturbance in the forest. And he knew I was first dog of the entire event on the first day with him at blind retrieve. And he hammered the blind retrieve, but he smelled that there was a disturbance in the forest. And the rest of the day, he liked to show everybody how not to act. It was bad. He embarrassed me because he was a punk, and I was embarrassed because I felt like I hadn't given the dog enough. But I will tell you that he's an example of a dog that we trained so hard with, and he was so smart to training. He knew the difference was training versus the real deal. And he did that to me not once but twice in different venues. But he's just a super talented dog. I'd put him down on the ground any day to go find birds and hunt with, and I love him dearly. But I'll tell you, he's the one you don't sit around and brag about before you go into an event with, because he will make you a fool. And then Driggs just had a moment of just literally, I think it was the pressure of the whole day. And then, of course, it's going down the leash. It doesn't matter how composed you try to be. It's like the Olympics, we've trained for this all year. It's one and done. That's what we're going to do, kids, and you're trying to psych yourself up. And he got down to the blind retrieve, and he swam 3 times across the pond to about 60 yards and popped every time and came back to look at the gurgling that was going on under the cut bank right next to me. And it was literally the pressure of the day getting to him, because I knew, just like everybody who goes to the Invitational, I knew that those dogs could do the job, and not just in pieces. They could do it all in one day because we had trained for it. And it's very challenging to keep your head about you when your dog is not doesn't want to do it that day. It really is. I mean, and I don't think we overtrained to a detriment. I think we may have overtrained to where they were just like the stress of all of it compiled, and they just said, "Woohoo! So what we're going to do today." And I think that's the one thing that makes it challenging. Vizslas are very, very smart, much like poodle pointers, where they can literally calculate, oh, it's different today. All right, okay. And those two are very smart dogs, and they gave me a challenge. But the cool thing about this year is that Betty, who is Blondie's daughter, I'm training her, and my goal with my own personal dogs, I when I head to the invitational, my goal is we are going to have fun. We're going to enjoy this process. I want my dogs looking good doing it. I don't want them to look sad, and I don't want them showing that they don't want to do it, because if I get to that point, then that means they're not having fun. And this is, after all, supposed to be fun. And so, it's a big goal to try and get her VC, but if she doesn't do it, I'm not going to worry about it. With the percentage of dogs that pass, just getting there is an honor. And I tell that to anybody who qualifies a dog of any breed. When you get to the invitational level and you've trained that hard, your dog can do it. You wouldn't be there if it couldn't. I'll tell you, if my dog wasn't doing it, I'd pull the dog from the test. Why go and have them embarrass themselves and you when they don't want to do it? So we know these dogs can do it. It's just that the pressure of the day, can we all keep it together? And the dogs sense it. It starts at 6 a.m. When you wake up, you start feeling it. And it builds throughout the day. And it literally is the thrill of victory versus the agony of defeat.
Well, and I think what's also important to know is that the dogs don't care if they pass or not, right? The dogs only care about the time that they spend with you training up for the test and then being out there that day of the test, but they don't care about the title.
And that, in an essence, is why I approach it from the standpoint of I want my dog having fun doing it. Because if they aren't having fun, then what's the point, right? And I'm lucky to be able to have two owners out of that same litter who are bringing their siblings to Betty. Megan Helmuth up in Wisconsin has Cruz, and then Matt Sessions down in North Carolina's got Trace, and they qualified their dogs. And then there's a fourth dog that was qualified. He's out in Utah. His name is Comet. The owner is a hardcore chucker hunter, mountain climbing, hardcore chucker hunter, and he's prioritizing hunting over training for the invitational, which is fine. I probably do the same. When I lived out west, you look at it a little differently when you live out there. And when hunting season is going to be during that same time, you're going hunting. And so that's what he's doing. And I don't blame him. But I think for the age of the litter, they all qualified for it last summer. So they were 2.5 with utility title prize ones. And it's the youngest litter to have qualified for the VC or for the invitational. And 3 out of 4 going is going to be really fun to watch. We're going to have a little camp. We have quite a few Vizslas related to these 3 dogs. There's a half, let's say half grandfather, sibling, something like that will be there. And then there's several other people with different Vizslas from different kennels that will be there. And we're all going to camp in the same campground and have a good time and try to, but we'll party one way or the other. Let's put it that way, whether it was pass or fail. And if you go back to the history of the invitational and how many Vizslas would even qualify to be there, much less actually run at the invitational, this last 3 invitationals, I think we've had more Vizslas than ever. This year, I think we've got 9. That's a lot of qualified dogs that are at the invite. And so it's going to be exciting. It'll be fun. People from all over the nation coming together with their red dogs.
Out of those 9, how many of those are from your alliance that's forming?
I want to say 6, maybe 7.
Hmm.
Yeah. Phil Meyer owns Reggie. Reggie was bred by the Martinsons, and if you look at as far as stud dogs go, with Vizslas, he has the best track record of producing consistently high performance dogs that live and hunt with their owners and but get to the invitational level. There'll be 2 sons or 3 sons of his there. And then Betty came out of a litter where Reggie's the grandfather. So Betty, Trace, and Cruz are all grandkids to Reggie. So it is definitely a family affair. And 2 of those dogs are out of Cheryl Tepp's line of her female Magic, was bred to Reggie a few years back. And so 2 of those dogs will be at the invite. And then Betty's out of, obviously, Betty, Cruz, and Trace are out of mine. And then Phil's got a son out of Reggie that was bred by Ashley Uffman down in Texas. Um, and it's one of only 3 puppies that were in the litter, and he's moving on to the invite. So, and he's young. He's a 3-year-old dog too, very young dog. So it's with young dogs, you also get a lot of big, you could have a big day. You could either they could be big crazy or they could keep it all together and pass. So it'll be interesting to see how it works. And then we have some other dogs that are showing up that are in from different lines that'll be there, and they're all going to be part of the camp.
Having 6 or 7 out of 9 from your alliance, it really speaks to 2 aspects of it. The first of the obvious one is obviously the quality breeding, but the other part of it that a lot of people might not think about is pairing those dogs with the right puppy buyers, with the right owners that are going to invest the time to train that dog and bring it up to that level.
Any owner that first works to get their dog through the NA test is it's great to have them on the team, right? But when you start talking about utility, it's like, going from NA, which is, graduating from first grade, then you get up to the utility level, you're graduating from college by then. And the invitational is a PhD. And so the jump in education for the owner and the dog between NA and utility is so drastic that it takes a very committed person with some experience a lot of times, and a good network of their own training partners and friends and a support from their family to get there. And so it's not by accident that the dogs get there. It's because of the owners. Like, I can sell great dogs to anybody, right? But if I don't have great owners to show them off, then again, it comes down to people. So I always try to focus on that and really pay reverence to that, because without great owners, you don't get to prove your dog. It's so hard to do that. I know I can only train and test so many myself.
So besides the invitational, not that you can really shrug that off, but what else do you have going on with your kennel for the fall?
Well, this year I have 2 new additions to the bird hunting team. They're out of my litters from this spring, and many people followed me on Facebook with those. One was Smooth as Silk litter. It was my final litter with Blondie, and I was able to get all those pups into their homes without too much stress and pain and suffering. Aside from the toilet paper incident, they did manage to get a roll of toilet paper, 7 puppies, and I posted a video on Facebook that was quite funny. I came out to check on them, and they had pulled this toilet paper down and tore it into little tiny pieces, and there was toilet paper everywhere. I'm like, how did you guys get this down? And the only way I could figure it out, and there was one little troublemaker in that litter. She's mine. I kept her. She pulled a blanket down that had the toilet paper roll on top of it, and it got into the puppy playpen, and they shrapneled it. Looked like a snowstorm. But that was a smooth as silk raising of a litter. Likewise, the second litter wasn't. It was a C-section with a lot of hand feeding and care and maintenance to get those 5 pups to the finish line. But I kept one out of each litter, and so far, I love what I see out of both puppies. I think one brings a suite of talent to the table that is going to be great in terms of recovering birds, but she might frustrate the heck out of me when it comes to pointing birds. So she's going to see a lot of wild birds, and she won't get anything shot unless she's got it solidly pointed. The other one is going to be a great pointer, but she's going to have to work on her retrieve skills. So it'll be fun to see the contrast raising two puppies that are literally 2.5, 3 weeks apart in age, putting them on wild birds. And I have my A team, Blondie and Ripley and Ruby, and Betty's on my A team now too. And then I've got another dog named Shocky out of a litter from 2 years ago, and I'm currently working on training her for the utility test for next spring. So she's going through training right now. But pretty much when the invite ends, I'm going to wrap it up and go hunting for a while and put the dogs on the ground and chase birds. And hopefully this year I can get down to Arizona and New Mexico. That's what I want to do. I want to try and get some quail this year.
And you don't have to go too far to hunt. You're in right in the heart of pheasant country. Are you mostly pheasant and sharptail for home games, and then you try and maybe take a few trips?
I love pheasant hunting, but what I really love more than that is I love sharptail grouse or the prairie grouse hunting. Any of species, the dogs learn so much from it. It's a joy to watch the dogs learn right in front of you. I'm not as compelled to harvest game over with those birds. You know, I'm kind of got a soft spot for the prairie grouse through my conservation background, so I let a lot fly away, but I let the dogs learn a lot off of it. And when they do, I can put that together for them by shooting birds for them. My true passion is chukar hunting, and if I can get out west and spend some time with my good friends out there, I intend to do that because I'm itching. I need to get. I'm hearing it's going to be a good year, and I'm really would be excited to get out and chase those little devil birds.
Well, you've got the right dogs for it, that's for sure. You picked the right breed for Chucker.
Yeah, I mean, I love bird hunting in general. A big goal of mine this winter is actually to get back down to California and do some duck hunting in January. It's a good time to be down there and get the dogs on some of the little smaller ducks. Things like green-winged teal, shovelers, and that kind of stuff, and teach them about duck hunting in conditions that are conducive for vizslas. I mean, let's face it, duck hunting in the cold prairie in November is probably not the best idea with a short-coated dog, even with a vest. It can be done. I've done it, but you don't get a long hunt. It's quick and kill a couple birds, get out.
Yep, there's a better dog for that, right?
Right. Well, I always tell people if your focus is duck hunting, get a dog that's made for that, aka the poodle pointer or the wire hair. They're great dogs for it.
Sure, sure. All right, Bridget. Well, I've kept you on now for almost 2 hours, so twice as long as I said I would. I apologize for that. But I'd like to give you a chance to kind of wrap things up, and if you have any closing thoughts or anything that you think we should have gotten to, maybe you go ahead and go that route for us.
Well, as anybody knows, you can get me talking about dogs for hours, so it's not surprising it took us two. And we could talk all night, I'm sure, about training skills and what we want to train for regards to bird hunting. But I will say that I love these dogs, doesn't matter what breed they are, and I love getting my chance to work with each kind. But obviously, the Vizslas are my absolute favorite, and I'm passionate about them and improving their breed for hunters. That's my primary goal. Um, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your docket to spend some time talking about the red dogs and NAVHDA in particular. And I always go back to this. It's about the dogs. When it comes to testing and training, it's always about the dogs, but don't forget to take care of the people and say thank you to whoever is out there doing the work behind the scenes so that we can be out there testing our dogs. And I could name 100 names, but I appreciate everybody who has spent time either judging my dogs or the behind the scenes of putting on a test. And I would just, to anybody who is in NAVHDA, thank you very much for the time that you put in.
Awesome, and thank you for everything that you do as a volunteer judge, and and giving back to our community in the way that you do. How can people contact you if they want to get a hold of you, want to learn more about Vizslas, or maybe they're interested in a dog or interested in some training or?
if they want to just talk anything about dogs, Wall Canyon Vizslas can be found on Google. My phone number, my emails are all on there. Also, Wall Canyon Kennels is the website name. And then obviously I can be found on Facebook at Bridget Nielsen.
All right, Bridget, thanks again so much for being on the show. It really was fun to talk to you.
Oh, it's always fun. Thank you so much. And I really enjoyed this. And keep that dog out of the mysterious snacks in the woods.
Yeah. Yeah, she's racked out again. That joke was in reference to one of my puppies that decided to vomit right in her crate right next to me in the middle of recording the podcast with Bridget. We edited that part out, but we got some good jokes out of it while Bridget was waiting on me to clean it up. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed episode number 31 of the Woe Post podcast. And if you did, leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Remember to like and follow on Facebook and Instagram at the Woe Post. Check out my website, www.thewopost.com, and you can contact me for any reason at bill@thewopost.com. Stay steady and God bless.